Perfect. I can see you in there. And you're hopefully looking at a slide, which is improved face-to-face by going virtual, which is what we're going to talk about today. Well, listen, just the three of us, so we can keep this to a very informal chat. I'd like to run through some slides. I'd like to have you experience the collaboration technology I use to underpin these virtual workshops. And well, let's start with that. So the virtual toolset I use is called MeetingSphere, and it allows you to capture everything that participants, questions and answers, or you pose them specific questions about what the purpose of the meeting is, and they can focus on the objectives and so on. So just by way of an introduction, I'm just going to ask you to think about the following two questions, which is now changing on the screen. And the first one is the top folder on the left-hand side. It says, introduce yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to ask you to type in your name. Ice is gone. So it's just you and me, Nettie.
Oh.
That's a personal session.
That's a private session. I'm really honored.
Yeah.
So you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine if there were 80 people on the call, or 15 as we had last week. Hopefully just showing you a fairly easy way to engage with a lot of people.
Yes, so I have a communication company specialized in relational marketing. And the company exists since 1991.
Wow.
Okay. And at the beginning, we were very focused on events, on brand activation. Then with the times, we got more into communication. And we have still one of our biggest business is brand activation. The second is events. And then we have graphic design and communication. And now with crisis, we thought, well, I think we have to change and focus more on digital communication. And that's what we did. So we transformed all our events to digital events, and now trying to onboard clients for digital events. You must know Luxembourg is a very small country, and we had a lot of networking events. Sometimes, normally the size of the events turn around 100 to 200 people. We do a lot of team buildings too.
Okay.
And now we thought, okay, we have to change this, doing digital events, digital team buildings. And we want to train companies for webinars and digital events. Right. And I have now, we are about to promoting this training session. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
So that's where we are.
And tell me about what are your typical customers? Are they individuals or are they small businesses?
No, we are only doing B2B.
Okay.
We have very few small businesses, more medium-sized businesses, administrations, governmental clients.
Okay. And so what are the sort of things that they're asking for your help with now, during lockdown?
Well, to help them go digital.
Yeah. Okay. And what is your what's your sort of go-to solution for digital? What do you?
We are working with Livestorm.
Okay.
We explored all the other possibilities, go to webinars, Zoom, and so on. Yeah. We choose now Livestorm because we found it the price versus the output the best, but all depends what you want to do.
Yeah.
We had now a very good idea where we recommend, where we were promoting our administration, our communes, to do their national holidays with a live stream.
Excellent.
And well, we got some clients now. I think we have 2 or 3, but it's always small events because you're doing more coaching. And so it's very small budgets.
Okay. And the digital platform is basically video and audio, and you're sharing screens and maybe doing some Q&As and some panels and things.
But we can do everything with this platform.
Okay. I think what I'm Isa, welcome back, thank you for rejoining. And hopefully, I think you're able to join in the Meeting Sphere session as well. I can see you in there. It would be great, Isa, if you could just type in your short introduction. So just a quick sentence. And Nettie and I were talking about the digital marketing and relationship marketing company she runs, and how they're connecting through. Sorry, it was live, video live, wasn't it? Livestorm. Okay. And those, and have you got to the point where you've got sort of 100, 200 people interested in an event, or is that you still keeping it fairly small during this time?
Well, we designed now an event for 2,000 people, what a complex thing.
Wow.
Where we have an exhibition. We have workshops and a World Cafe going on.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
And it's an exhibition with 27 exhibitors. We have 12 workshops. We have 12 World Cafes. And the complexity is these 2,000 people are about, let's say, 80 different nationalities. The aim of the event is to integrate immigrants in Luxembourg.
Okay.
And our problem is not the technology. Our problem is we don't know what equipment the participants have. If they will join by smartphone, computer. When we did the event live, some even had an email address, so we had to send them a letter.
Wow.
It's an event which is, well, they are obliged to participate if they want to get the Luxembourgish nationality. They have a certificate. We have to guarantee that we have their signature and that they have participated in each step.
Okay.
So, because we will deliver a certificate afterwards. So it's rather complex. But the problem for me, it's not the complexity. It's how the participants are equipped, and also the exhibitors are all governmental administrations. We don't know if they want to do a virtual exhibit, and also those who are doing the workshops. So most of them never had done a virtual workshop. So we have to train them, motivate them, and that's complex.
Excellent. So I think what I'm going to show you is a little bit beyond that context. I think if you're reaching hard to reach people with low levels of technology and kind of understanding of technology, and also that you are perhaps delivering content, getting them in small groups to talk about it and pulling them back into main event, delivering more content and so on. That's something that could be enhanced by this, but it would be a complication. Even today, I'm now asking you to log into Meeting Sphere as well as Zoom. So you're already managing 2 applications.
Yeah.
So I'll talk, briefly in a minute about the case study, and I'll just talk to you about it, and then you can ask any questions. Isa's obviously having trouble connecting, and nobody else has joined, so it is still just the two of us. The brainstorm, which is going to work as well as with 6 people as 600 or 2,000 people. You can pose a number of questions. And you can get everybody to anonymously and simultaneously contribute. So you get a whole deal of data, not just from the people who are prepared to put their hand up and speak. So you get a much greater range of inputs. So one of the questions I've been asking the people joining these sort of sessions is, what are you learning during lockdown, and what are your clients learning? So there are those 2 other folders in MeetingSphere which you can see, which you can simply click into and then type in a response to.
But okay. That you can also do with all chats. If you're in Zoom, you could also type it in the chat. Yeah, that's a good point. And what we're able to do in the tool is then manage that data, put it into themes, go deeper into each of the themes, and come out with a conclusion. So I can get people to perhaps work on some of the content, whether they're experts or whether they're just participants, and dig deeper into the data and draw some conclusions from it. So we're making sense of the data as well. The tool will do it automatically. No, it helps you. It allows you to add themes and move stuff around, but actually it's the process of the participants asking questions, getting their heads around their answers, and then making sense of those answers. So it's a really important part of the process that you hear what the participants are saying in their own words, and then you're processing that data to make sense of it and draw conclusions from it. When are you processing it? During the meeting. Because what I see with this tool, I have to open out 2 screens. Yeah. When I typed in the answer, I didn't see you. I didn't see what was happening around me. And what I don't understand with this tool is how the information is processed, because I don't see how it is processed. And I just wonder if you have a mixed audience in Luxembourg, we have always people from French background, English background, and so on. So the vocabulary they are using needs sometimes some translation. Yeah. So, and if you don't design the answers before so that you click certain predefined answers, how is the system processing? Can you explain that to me? I mean, if there are tools in MeetingSphere that allow you to select and rate and rank and multiple choice. Okay, so you can do all that predefined work as well. So they're clicking answers and so on. This is much more about free and open discussion to get the views and a range of views from within the group. So it's a capture tool that then allows you to manage the data and converge it into themes, to draw conclusions, to prioritize conclusions or recommendations or objectives and so on. So the anonymity really helps, because that gives people the ability to say really what they think, as opposed to selecting one answer from a pre-work order, and it gives open access. The point you were making about multi-languages, I often work in multi-languages, so people are able to type and capture their thinking in their own language, and then we have people who are interpreting, who are then writing the English or the French version alongside it. So it's great for allowing people to express themselves in their native language, and for that interpretation to be understood by everybody else through the translation. And I think the translation is been done via Google Translate.
or Google Translate, or or you have you know, in large events where there may be 4 or 5 languages, I have, you know, 5 or 6 interpreters who are looking for the language they're focused on, and they're writing the English or the French underneath. So they're doing a live translation.
And so they are doing it only acoustically, or are they doing it in writing?
They're doing it in writing on the screen.
So they must be very quick.
Well, there are a few of them. So, yeah, the majority of people might write in English, for example, and then, I mean, I work with the Welsh government, so there are Welsh speakers, or I work with the EU, so there are multiple languages, and you just have the interpreters edit and write an English version underneath as they see the content come through. And it's, you know, it's quick. They're used to doing it audio-wise, and they're very quick to do it on the keyboard. I think we're really talking about meetings and workshops where there is a distinct purpose and a set of outcomes. So let me show you just a couple of slides about the case study that I worked on with the UK government, and I'll put it back to the slide.
I have another question. How do you manage, because when you're facilitating a presentation, a keynote, and you have 200, 300 or more, or 50 persons present, and they are typing in their answers, how do you manage to facilitate and reading all the answers? Do you have a community manager at that stage?
Yeah, you can. I mean, you would work with, in this case, I worked with the government specialists who were the policy team. So they were talking about an energy policy. So they're looking through the data as it comes in and making sense of it. The first thing they need to do is identify the big chunks, the big themes. You know, what are the subjects that people are talking about? And we can identify those, agree those with the audience, and then the audience can then begin to sort the data into those themes. So you basically use the power of the crowd to sort the data into something more meaningful because of its structure. So the obligation from the owner, the community manager, as you say, is to you know, have an initial interpretation of what the data is saying. And you start that with the audience, and then you introduce the audience to say, okay, what else do you see? What are the other themes that we can see coming from this? What are the other comments? And then they can start talking verbally and say, yeah, there's a section on immigration rules. There's a section on policy. There's a section on communicating with the government. And then that begins to build a picture right across the group, and everything's done live on the screen, so they can see the new themes emerging, and they can see where the data needs to be placed. So you engage the audience to do more of the work around converging, and your specialists, your sponsors, are managing that as well, and they are managing the conversation, facilitating the conversation to the important stuff, to the stuff that they need to talk about.
That looks very challenging to me.
It's a facilitation technique that might be akin to everybody in the room writing 2 or 3 post-it notes and putting them on the wall, and then you as a facilitator have to engage the audience or the participants in saying, okay, what is this data saying? How do we move the post-its around? How do we cluster them? How do we group them? What are the themes emerging, and so on? So it's perhaps a different way of facilitating, but it's a much more engaging way of facilitating, because, for example, when you say to people, if you ask a question openly, then you're going to get perhaps 4 or 5 people who are willing to answer, but 80% of the audience perhaps won't say anything. So you don't know what they think. This way, because it's anonymous and because it's simultaneous, everybody can give you an answer, and then you can work with the group to make sense of those answers and group them and show what's most important. So it's a different set of skills, but it's absolutely based on, this is built by facilitators, as opposed to a lot of the technologies, the Q&A technologies, the Slidos, and the chat function and things like that are built by technologists who think, oh, well, the audience might want to ask a question, let's put a chat in. So this is a much more sophisticated way of working based on what facilitators need in order to ensure that they get a group through a process to a clear set of conclusions that then make sense and that are actionable. So for example, you're talking to an organization about a big change program, and you need to engage people in changing their behavior, refocusing their efforts, working in new markets and so on. So you say to them, here's the plan. Then they have loads of questions. How will this affect me? What about my team? What about my targets? Who are my new customers? Well, why have you gone regional rather than country-based? All these questions. If you don't give them a chance to express those questions and reveal what they're really thinking about your plan, they don't actually interact with the plan. They don't buy into the plan, and therefore the plan fails. So this way, you get all those questions out, and you sort through them, and you answer them, and you present back to them what the plan is, and then they become much more engaged, and they buy into the plan, and therefore the plan has much greater potential for being successful. So just quickly, so I just took 2 or 3 slides. So this was a government policy team looking to get feedback from stakeholders in the energy pipeline in the UK on basically how the UK will achieve its carbon neutrality target we've set for 2050. So we had 80 participants from right across industry, some of them from competing energy providers, some of them from right across the industry. And the policy team wanted to present their thinking as to what the industry needs to do in order to achieve the targets and get feedback on the specific elements of that policy. So it's quite an emerging document that is in draft form, but this is a chance for the stakeholders to give early feedback to the participants. And it was going to be a 1-day workshop for 80 people in London, and it became a 2.5-hour virtual event, which then ran on for another week, so the participants and stakeholders could access the tool and continue to contribute, check in with their teams, look at the strategy for their business, and give further comments over that following week back to the policy team in government. Okay. So basically they came to me and said, how can we do this virtually? We need this to happen. And I introduced the tool. It was being used in the government departments, other than the one, they hadn't come across it before, so they were all new to it. And we coached them and supported them in the design, the build. And then we ran the event with 2 technologies. One was MS Teams, which is the Microsoft version that basically is Zoom, and MeetingSphere. So everybody, all the participants, just got a very simple instruction saying, please log into the 2 activities. And what we revealed, we got over 500 responses to specific aspects of the policy. So really good feedback from the different sectors within the industry as to what they thought about the emerging policy or the ideas that the policy team were coming up with. It allowed the policy team to focus on specific aspects they wanted to test with the stakeholders, and everybody was able to contribute rather than just get the views of 1 or 2 people whose opinions may be strong enough for them to voice them, but you don't then hear what the rest of the people think and whether this is an isolated view or whether this is a general view across the stakeholder group. So let me just show you the way this was captured. So I'm going to open another tool, which is a discussion tool. MeetingSphere has 4 tools. There's a brainstorm tool for capturing ideas and theming, a discussion tool to support kind of World Cafe type multiple discussions in the room and different topics. There's a rating activity. It allows you to measure consensus and draw conclusions and prioritize conclusions. And then there's a presentation tool, which is what we've just been using with the slides and the questions and on the right-hand side. So here, we ask them about the 4 key areas of the policy. So you can see them there in the green, the purple, the blue, and the yellow.
I don't see anything.
Have you got the meeting sphere screen open?
Wait a minute. Is that?
I think you're still logged into meeting sphere. So
yeah,
find the
topics. Please pick your team. Is this what?
Yes. So pick your team is an identifier that tells us from which area of the industry you're from. So just click other or facilitator or something, or one of them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you get to see the 4 topics. So you can go for the topic that you're most interested in, or that you're trying to represent as a stakeholder, and you click enter to any of those boxes. And within the boxes now, you can see the detailed level of feedback that you get on each of the topics. And at the end of each of the contributions is a little bracket that says how they've signed into the tool. So whether they're an aggregator or a generator or a supplier, a consultancy, an energy provider, and so on. So you're getting high quality, detailed feedback on the specific areas that you're asking them about. So here we're asking them, I'm opening the green one, so we're asking about ESO and DNO flexibility markets. And if you scroll through that, you'll see occasionally there's a gray bar which is saying things like, what are the current actions and commitments not sufficient to deliver this? So they're asking for what they're missing and what else they need to include. So the team, the policy team, are able to ask very detailed questions and get very detailed responses. And they're from across the industry rather than just the first 1 or 2 people who managed to speak in the room. And there's also the dynamic in the room, which is 80 people. Many of them are from competing organizations, energy providers, and they are anxious about saying too much because they think they may give away some sort of commercial secret or perspective, something they're working on in their business that they don't particularly want their competitors to know. So openly, they're quite silent, but give them access to the technology, and they write in high quality responses to the team. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then the one at the right-hand side in pink, what is missing from our vision, and there's 105 answers in there, and those are things that the participants thought weren't yet considered or included in the policy documents. So these are additional perspectives for the team to think about. And we made it very clear to the stakeholders that this was their chance to give feedback on the emerging policy, but that simply because they were able to capture this didn't mean that it would be included in the policy, but that the team would consider it. And the team spent a good, well, after the week that we kept it going, they spent a good day and a half sorting through the data, thinking through it, discussing it, and deciding whether to include it to influence their next version of the policy document.
Okay, I understand. So it was not a live webinar, it was a process. I know a similar tool called Syntetron, you know?
Oh yes, yeah, from Norway, yes. Yeah. I mean, so, it was live. It was live for 2.5 hours on a WebEx call or a Zoom call. Can't remember. I think we used Zoom, and we got 85% of the comments during that time. So over 500 comments during that time. And then over the following week, we invited people to think, because quite often people go away from an event like that thinking, I should have said this, or there's something I need to check back at my office or with my team, and I need to include that. So they're able to go back in. And as you go through these comments, occasionally you'll see some with a day and a timestamp. And those are the comments that have been put in after the main event. Okay. So in terms of conclusions, I'm just going to take you back to the presentation again. The results, and of course you can see the space on the right hand side if there's a little comment button halfway down. If it's not open already, you can see that there are questions, and then I can answer those questions as they come up, or one of the team can answer those questions as they come up. So we had over 500 verbatim responses in their own words. It stimulated a discussion about what the priorities were and what was most important, least important. It allowed the stakeholders in the 2.5 hours to focus on their particular areas of interest rather than have to wait whilst the areas that they weren't interested in were kind of gone through by the team. So the team were doing presentations, then we'd have a discussion, capture the comments, and then go back to another part of the policy. So people were able to keep working on their own specialized areas. We used a sticky point voting, which you may have seen the sticky points, just to identify the key messages that the participants wanted to highlight back to the policy team. So these stickers indicated the ones that had, perhaps they wanted to promote in the minds of the policy team. We had, as I said, the asynchronous, or the time afterwards, for 1 week to continue to add your content. It was a very simple process. As you found today, you click the link, you're directed to the different activities. We know exactly what the participants are looking at, and we can see from the content going in that they're all active in it. There's no need to transcribe notes or take notes in the meeting, because it's all being captured by the participants. Much more efficient, but also much more accurate, because your note takers aren't interpreting what they're hearing and trying to write quickly, and not being able to read their own writing afterwards, and so on. So the reporting function is total, and you can create a full report of everything that's been captured instantly after the event. So that improves the accuracy, the interpretation of what people are saying, because it's in their own words, they're expressing it properly, they're using full sentences, and so on. And the feedback, I know this is a small slide, but in bold you can see that people are saying, look, this was much better than the face-to-face event we had in February. So the feedback was, this is the way this type of stakeholder engagement workshop should be done in the future. It's also extremely carbon friendly, because people aren't traveling, and people were spending the entire day in London to attend this workshop and sit there for 6-7 hours. Whereas in 2.5 hours, we collected more accurate and more detailed feedback on the policy. So the conclusion was this was better than the face-to-face meetings, and the participants confirmed that.
But you said before that there was a 2.5 hour conference, and then, well, perhaps I didn't understand correctly, the participant answered only during the 2.5 hour, or did they answer also the week after? Yeah,
both. And it was also the stakeholders who weren't able to attend the 2.5 hour webinar, they were able to contribute. So, if they didn't turn up, or they were busy, then we sent them an email afterwards saying, sorry you weren't able to make the event, but you can still contribute. Here are the presentations, click this link, and they had access to the tool, and they could see what everybody else had said, and they could add their comments or say where they agreed, and so on. So you're basically trying to ensure that you don't get to the point where some of your critical stakeholders can't make it on the day, and therefore you don't hear their voice in the feedback. So it's a really, using both methods, both the same time webinar for 2.5 hours and the overtime discussion later, you're ensuring that you're giving everybody equal access to contribute to this emerging government policy. Then I was going to just talk briefly about the market for collaboration tools. And I think the tools that you're describing you're using are the video and conference call tools, that second set. There are also those corporate network tools, the chats and the how to organize in teams and the channels and the Slacks and things like that, which are corporate social networks, trying to replace lots of email. There are event and conference tools, which when you go to a large event these days, there's always a smartphone app where you can follow the speakers, look at their biogs, check in which work streams you're going to, and see who else is at the event and so on. And then there's team and project management tools, and these are much more sophisticated, things like Trello, which help organize teams within organizations into project teams. They can share documents, they can jointly edit documents and so on. So really clever overtime or asynchronous tools. Then there's the visual collaboration tools, where you have smart boards that are interactive and you place post-it notes or comments or drawings on the boards and they're shared between the two boards. Great way of getting people to represent their views in pictures or writing. And then finally, we have decision support and meeting workshop tools, which is what MeetingSphere falls into. And these tools are, as I said before, designed by facilitators to work with groups to help them through a divergent, an expansive and convergent process. So you gain basically high quality decisions that people feel bought into, which is really, really important when you want people to act differently based on the decision. So in a table form, you can see the audio, video, chat, screen share, polling, and so on at the top, and the different classifications of technologies show where those features and functionality are. Whereas we have audio in MeetingSphere, they're going to add video, so that will complete that second bot, but they've got all these other functionalities around decision support, multi-criteria rating, prioritization, instant reporting, and the ability to work over time or asynchronously. Okay, and then just to finish, this is a complex map of how those technologies fit in those 6 categories. I'll send you this presentation. You're very welcome to it. Yeah, good. Yeah. And you can see the bubbles represent those 6 categories of tool. And you can see the video and audio virtual meeting tools, the Zooms, the WebEx, the Skypes, and so on, down in the bottom left corner. Corporate social networks, team and project management platforms, event management and audience participation tools, and then this big group over to the right and the top, which are the decision support meeting process tools. So Synthetron, for example, you mentioned, is in there. Again, I know them well, designed by facilitators to help us work with groups, whether we're in the same room or whether we're working virtually. So the key differentiator of these decision support meeting tools is that they're basically developed by or guided by professional facilitators rather than the rest, which are built by technologists trying to sell you all-encompassing collaboration platforms like MS Teams or Trello or so on. Mm-hmm. And just finally, if we think about, I talked about a decision-making process. This is at the core. This is the core process for many, many, many of the workshops that I run. And it's a very simple 5-step process where the first step is to present an idea, a question, how are we going to manage through this change? How do we merge these 2 companies? What does our strategy look like in the next 5 years? And you collect opinions and generate lots of ideas, step 1. Then you theme and discuss those ideas. You dig deeper and synthesize those ideas and make sense of them and get people talking about them. There's much more verbal interaction in these because people have expressed their view. Then you put them through a decision process to which one of these meet our criteria. And then of those that meet the criteria, i.e. are going to maximize your potential for success, you then plan actions in the next steps. So a meeting sphere is built to support all 5 of those steps. And at the end, you go through those process steps and you drop out with a document that says, here's the report, here's what we're going to do. And it's everybody's work, not just people telling others or leaders telling subordinates how to work. And we're at 8:45. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Now, you have to need this. Not all type of events need this type of collaborative applications.
Yeah.
I think this is. Yeah, I think it's very interesting, but it's not fitable for every type of event.
No, of course, yeah. So the sort of events, that's why I'm trying to kind of say, okay, so how do we differentiate the sorts of events and when this is most useful? And I think it's when you need more than just people's questions and answers or feedback.
Exactly.
You need them to express their views and be part of a process. Psychologically, they become much more bought in to a process when they're asked for their opinion and given the opportunity to say what they really think. And the anonymity really helps there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you need citizen participation on special topics. But you too, how easy is it to use for somebody who is not digital fit?
So I would
imagine if you use it for citizen participation.
Yeah.
Is it?
I'm finding these days, I've been working with technology for 25 years. And in the early days, it was very difficult because people were black and white about computers. Now, everybody can type a text in WhatsApp or, they can send a message to their mother. So it's no more sophisticated than that for the participant. So you provide them with an area to add their content, and it's simple and easy to use. And I don't find there's more than perhaps 1 in 25, 1 in 30 people who struggle with it.
And what are the costs?
Well, the cost is something in the region. Well, it's €69 a month for full access to the tool, and you can buy it on a monthly basis when you need it. Hi, you're just checking that we're finishing.
Okay.
Hi.
Yeah.
So Nettie, listen, I'll connect with you on LinkedIn and through Network Tables, and I'll send you the presentation.
Great.
And I can see from your thoughtful questions that you will have some more. So why don't we just exchange?
I think I've got it. It's just that I need the project who fits you too.
Yeah. I mean, you can download a free trial for 14 days and have a play, and work out the software. Once you get your head around how the software is built from a facilitator point of view, it becomes really easy to design your event and then map MeetingSphere onto it. And I would always do that the same way. And just the final point, I'd always have somebody running the software for me during an event, so that I focus on the facilitation and somebody else is pushing the buttons in MeetingSphere.
I think that's useful.
Yeah, it's a double act. Yeah, I mean, I can do it today and I can do it on large meetings because I've been doing it so long. But I always recommend when I train people to use the system that they have people who specialize in the software and people who specialize in facilitating the event.
Yeah, I understand. Mm-hmm.
Okay, lovely to meet you, Nettie. Thank you very much for your time.
See you. Bye.
Bye.